Hi, it's Miss Chambers, and today I'm going to talk to you about the scientific method. And the scientific method is basically just a way for scientists to organize experiments. So the purpose of it is just for scientists to kind of all stay the same and have a really good way to organize their experiments. So let me give you an example of an experiment. Let's say that you were watching goldfish and you notice that goldfish seem to get bigger if they live in a bigger tank. So you're wondering if the length of goldfish are affected by the size of the fish tank they live in. And I will tell you just a real quick personal story. This is my goldfish. His name is Splash. He's actually my son's goldfish. He won him at a carnival 2 years ago. And he was throwing that game where there's like little balls and you throw them into a fishbowl. He did it and he caught a goldfish. And we brought him home and he was this little goldfish 2 years ago. And now over the last 2 years, he's gotten pretty big. But now he's kind of stayed the same. And we have not changed the fish tank. So if we increase the fish tank size, could he maybe get bigger? You could set up an experiment to test this using the scientific method. And what you could do is you could maybe have 6 fish tanks of increasing size, and then you can measure the goldfish that are in the tanks every 48 hours, every 2 days for 3 months. And in that way, you're setting up a pretty good experiment. And the thing about good experiments that follow the scientific method is that they change only one variable. So a variable is any condition or part of an experiment. And usually you talk about 2 variables, the independent variable and the dependent variable. So let's talk about the independent variable first. In this experiment, you are going to have different tank sizes, different sizes of tanks. The one that you are changing, which in this case is tank size, is going to be your independent variable. So our independent variable will be fish tank size. We are going to see if that affects the size of the fish. So that's your dependent variable. Dependent variable is the one that's measured or counted. So in this case, the dependent variable is the fish length. Measuring the dependent variable lets the scientist, the researcher, see if changing the independent variable makes any difference. And that's the only thing you want to see if it affects. Because in an experiment, many things can affect experiments. In this case, temperature could affect it, type of fish could affect it, maybe even sunlight could affect it, maybe even how often you measure it can affect it. You want to make sure that those things do not affect the experiment. So those are things that must stay the same. Things that must stay the same are called constants. A constant is a condition that stays the same between groups. So in this experiment, you want to use the same type of fish, all goldfish, same number of fish in each tank, the same room, so sunlight's not a factor, temperature's not a factor, same amount of time for the measurement. You want all those things to stay the same. Constants are really important because that way you can make sure only the independent variable is causing the result. Only one thing is causing the result. So once you have all that identified, now you can start actually really performing the experiment. And so the next step is to write a hypothesis. And maybe you've heard about hypothesis before, and probably you've heard about it in terms of an educated guess. And it is an educated guess, that's true, but we're going to talk about it in terms of how to write a good hypothesis. So a good hypothesis shows that your experiment is a testable prediction. It's something that you can test. It's 1 sentence long, and it makes a prediction that is testable. You can test it. The best way to do this is to write an if-then sentence. And here's how it should be formatted. If I do this thing, the independent variable, then this other thing is going to happen. So in our fish experiment, if fish are put into different size tanks, then the fish will be longer in larger tanks. You can test that. You can see if you can put them in different size tanks and see if their sizes are affected. So the key to a good hypothesis is that it's a statement that is a prediction and it can be tested. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any questions.